Hello, welcome to the whiteboard briefings presented by me, Ian Clark. This briefing we'll be talking about the manoeuvre, which is forward parking into a bay, then reversing out again. It's worth saying that for the purposes of the UK driving test, you have to learn 4 reversing manoeuvres. Even though it's pulling forward, it's the reversing out, it's the reversing part of this particular manoeuvre. So this is one. The other one is reversing into a bay as opposed to pulling in forwards. That's 2. That leaves 2. One is parallel park, possibly, arguably the more trickier ones. And that leaves one more, which is pulling up on the other side of the road and stopping and going back in a straight line, reversing back and carrying on. On the day, your test, the examiner will only get you to do one of these manoeuvres, just one. It's a little bit random, but you will only do one, but you do need to learn the 4. Now, what is common to the 4 manoeuvres are the 3 component parts. Now, the component parts, no particular order, but they're the component parts, the bits you'll be assessed on. So that's control, just say that's control, which is your clutch and your brake. That's the basics of control. I don't think you probably need any gas or accelerator on this. On tick over or idling, when the car, there's no gas, the engine's just ticking over, there's usually enough power on modern engines to do this. Now, in your vehicle, you might need a little bit of power, but I find that usually you don't need any gas, but you might. So it's really clutch and brake. That's the control. The observation side, I'll come to that in more detail. They're all important, but the observation depends on what's around you, just being aware. I'll come back to that in a moment as well. And accuracy. And accuracy is, like all the manoeuvres, ending up where you should be and then, taking it from there. So, control, observation and accuracy. Now, if you do, you should get the forward park into a bay. It will never be done at the driving test centre. Never done at the driving test centre. That's the way to do it. The only bay that's done at the driving test centre, manoeuvre-wise, is reversing in. The reason for that is that because it's a forward park and you reverse out again, that's the reverse side, you carry on your drive. So the driving examiner is not going to come back, go out on the drive, come back, get you to go forwards and carry on. So it will be at a place. They tend to use, the driving examiners have the same places they use. I know where I train. At the moment, I know a few car parks that they use. They can change it, but there's a few places that they know they can use that are safe and it's okay for the forward park. So it will never be done at the test centre. It will only be done at a public car park somewhere. And the examiners tend to have a prior agreement with the businesses or what's around that it's all right that they're going. So let's just say on your drive, the examiner asks you to go into a car park somewhere. And as you come in, now it could be 2-way traffic in and out, it could be single file traffic, it just depends. But let's just say that we've got a layout like this. Bays are not, sometimes there's just bays one side. From my experience, the examiners tend to ask people to pull in on the right, pull into this side. Now, I don't know whether you might know that they pull in the left, but I teach my students to pull in on the right. We do the left as well, but from a test perspective, it does tend to be pulling in on the right. So we'll take it as that. So, the examiner, as you come in, we'll just ask you to just stop for a moment, and then the instruction is something like this. I'd like you to pull forwards and end up in a bay, in the middle of the bay, please. Just pull forwards and end up in the middle of the bay. they will specify, but not next to a parked car. So when I say specify, if the bays are numbered like this, they won't say bay 4 or 5. All they'll say is, but not next to a parked car. So they don't want you in bay 6. I think that's just from a point of safety, and it just keeps everybody a little bit happier. The customers don't want learners pulling in forwards, then reversing out next to their parked car. So it will not be next to a parked car. It could be the case the examiner pulls you into their favourite car park to pull forward. It's really busy, and they'll say, well, they'll just ask you to carry on. But usually they go to places they're pretty sure that you'll have the opportunity, the space will be there. So they've asked you to pull up and pull in on the right, just say on the right, they'll specify which side. I want you to pull in on the right and end up in between the white lines, not next to a parked car. Let's just say bay 4. So that's going to be your target. So the mistake that people make when they pull forward into a bay, they tend to go diagonally to get in, which makes it really difficult. In fact, what you should really do is go slightly this way to give you a wider steering circle, ideally. Because if there were little pillars or posts at the end, wooden posts sticking up at the end of the bay, you wouldn't want to hit them. So try and go round a little bit. The only thing with doing this is your body language, where your car's heading. It does look like you're going in here, so you might want to think about a right signal, because somebody may come past you. This is your observation side. So if you do go to the left a little bit to get into bay 4, just make sure you keep your mirrors, because somebody could nip round you. You might want to give a right signal. So don't go diagonally. If anything, in a straight line, slightly this way, if anything. So when you come up, this is what I teach my students. Again, your instructor, whoever's teaching you, helps you with this and gives you some guidelines to get in. What I teach my students is I have slight reference points. Now in my car, it's the line of the bay that you're going into. This is bay 4 that you're heading into. The first line of the bay usually lines up halfway through the door. So when you look through your door and you trace the line of before, you'll see it lines up about halfway. Now, a lot of my students think, oh, I'm going to go too far, I'm going to overshoot it. It doesn't, but it does look like that. So I get my students to more or less stop the car and then full lock it to come in. When you go into the bay, you don't have to be dead centre as long as you're not over the white line. When you're going forwards into the bay, the last bit, you'll lose sight of the white lines. Unless it's extended through, sometimes you can get bays, you've got another bay on the other side and you can see. But if it just stops there, then you lose sight and you kind of gauged it so you're in. There we are, you've gone into the bay. So when you see you're coming straight, just straighten up. The examiner might say to you when you've pulled up, are you happy with that? Now, it could be coded for you might be a little bit out. I'm not saying it is, but are you happy with that? The way you would check is open your door, long as your handbrake is on in neutral, open your door and have a look, or maybe put your door mirror down and have a look. So if you're in the bay, good. Now, if you are a little bit out, just say you've ended up here, you are permitted to shunt. Now, shunting means going back, in this case, and correcting it. So what you would do is go into reverse. It does mean extra observation because people up and down. So do look all around, because this driver might be reversing out of here. Do look all around. Now, when you go backwards to correct it, as a driver, you should always know which way to turn to straighten up, because some people do get a little bit fuddled about which way to steer. So when you come back, because you need to be over this way, steer in the direction, in this case it's to the left, you want to go. If you're fortunate and the bays line up and they're symmetrical like this in the car park, you could even head for the bay behind you and line up, then go far enough back and then pull forwards into the bay. just do your observation. I did say a public car park, if it's really busy for whatever reason, there's a sale on in that particular, there's a few stores there, then do look all around. We haven't come to the reverse part yet. That's the pulling in forwards. Now, when you're in, an examiner says, "Oh, are you happy with that?" And you say, "Yeah, pretty happy. That's, I'm in." The examiner will then say, "This is the reversing element." The examiner will then say something like, "Okay, I'd like you to reverse out." Now listen to what they say. They might say reverse out to the left or to the right. Now, my experience, it tends to be reversing out the way you came in and going forwards, but do listen. I did say earlier there won't be any parked cars next to you unless somebody's nipped in really quick while you're doing a manoeuvre. I don't think they would, but they could. So let's just say the bays are empty. They've asked you to reverse out this way to the left. So you come back out. Sorry, to the right, round you go. You reverse back out the way you came in. I don't mean to the left, I mean to the right, back the way you came. So in reverse, look all around. Now you could, because there's no other vehicles next to you, just full lock it and then back you go. But do your observation. Just look all around and come back slowly. And then you carry on. But just listen to what the examiner says, which way. So I did mean, so when you come out, you can reverse back out the way you came and go out forwards that way. So that's the forward park. So just to recap, it won't be at the test centre, it will be at public car park if you get it. It's usually on the right-hand side, and don't cut across too early. And you are allowed to shunt, that is correct it. If you've gone a little bit out, you are allowed to come backwards, so keep your observation going. And at the end, I'll ask you to reverse out and go back, reverse out the way you came in to carry on that way. Or they might ask you to reverse out to the left and go the other way, but just listen to that. So that's the forward park. Hopefully you found that helpful and yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.